I'm here this afternoon in downtown Lethbridge with Melinda Colson, President of the Lethbridge Historical Society. And what we'd like to do is give our members and those who are interested a little bit of an idea about one of the current projects that is underway in the downtown and that is being spearheaded by the Historical Society. And with that, I'll maybe turn it over to Melinda and she'll give you a little bit more of an explanation.
George. So we're standing here in front of one of the signs. I'll explain a little bit about it in just a moment. Historically, this is the Lethbridge Historical Society, so I'm talking to people who know this. But at one time in 1885, all the streets downtown were named, and many of the streets across London Road area up through Westminster are all named. But it tended to be that if you were richer, if you were better known, you got the streets named after you. Well, several years I kind of came up with the idea that if the rich people got the streets, the rest of us should take the back alleys. And so I knew that in other communities the back alleys had been named. And so I came up with the idea that we would name the back alleys after average, regular people. People who would have used the back alleys as part of their jobs. People who would have accessed the buildings through the back alleys. And so that we, the normal people, the regular people, would have a spot as well. The other thing I love about our alleys is they're underutilized. One of the things about back alleys, and when we're standing here with these old historic buildings, when you look at the buildings, they are incredibly long. And I know an idea that's been on the books, and George would know a lot more about this, in the planning department, was to actually make the back alleys at some time walkable space. Because what you could then do is you could make these buildings more useful by having a building or business that you access from the street and a business that you access from the back alley. And there are some of the businesses downtown that are doing that, but not a lot of them. And by making people think of the alleys as a place you could walk and use, it would support those buildings. It would also make the downtown even more walkable, and it would connect the areas of Lethbridge even better. And so I thought, why don't we name the back alleys? So one of the things that I did is I actually made my own signs a few years ago. I went to a printing shop here in Lethbridge. I made about 12 different signs for different spots in Lethbridge. And then, thankfully, I have some awesome friends who woke up early on a Saturday morning with me. We came downtown and we just named some of the back alleys. This is the only one that survived over all the years, but we went and did it. And it was supposed to be up for about 2 weeks, just as I said, a bit of a guerrilla history project. But it turned out people loved it. We got a request from part of our city. We had a request from BRZ going, hey, you guys should make it more permanent. And even though that was about 4 years ago, we're still working on it. And hopefully within the next couple of years, you will see permanent signs going up. And so you'll see some of the people. So because this idea came from, let's get the regular people up there, and because I'm a historian, one of the things I wanted to do was have people who use these back alleys as part of their jobs, as part of their life, who are real people from Lethbridge history who actually use this. And so I looked at various jobs, tried to make sure we had a range of different ethnic groups, made sure there were men, made sure there were women. Even a child is actually on some of these places. Now, there will always be, when you choose a bunch of names like this, there's about 38 names, there'll always be some disagreement. People will wonder who's been chosen, how they've been chosen. That gives you a bit of the background. One of the things people might notice, though, is that there are not a lot of Blackfoot names. There are some, and we'll talk a bit about some of the people, but there's not a great number, and that was actually deliberately done as well. If I'm looking at the early 20th century, early 1900s, the pass system was being used by the government, so that anyone who left the reserve, a chief, any man, any woman, anyone who left the reserve had to get permission from the Indian agent, and what we essentially had was a segregated community. And so you wouldn't find many Blackfoot people living and working in Lethbridge. They would come to visit, they would shop, but they had to get permission. And so part of our history is that segregated nature of Lethbridge. And so you will notice in this that we went with the real true history of Lethbridge and have these segregated stories. So who's on the wall? Here we see Mark C. Rogers. If you've read the Squirrel Whiskey book that I wrote on the Prohibition period, Mark C. Rogers was the greatest bootlegger from Lethbridge history. In just 2 years, it is said that he acquired over $200,000. And both he and the people who are helping him move the alcohol around Lethbridge and southern Alberta were certainly using the back alleys. The reason he is on this one, though, is we actually had a request from Telegraph Tap House at the other end. They wanted the bootlegger on this street, so that's why, or this alley, and that's why.
The town is fascinating. That's most of that before this now. It's like trying to do the tour. You just get free. say some loud motorcycle goes by, and then it comes by again just for good measure.
See, what I say about why there's not a lot of black, but names make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
And what you might want to do is indicate that through the reconciliation process.
There'll be other ways, absolutely.
Yes, there'll be more consultation in that case. Cool.
We moved across the street because, of course, we were getting noise over there. One of the things I want to make sure people realize is this is just one project, the naming of the back alleys. Certainly I know the Sisters in Spirit are working on some public art projects to get more Indigenous history, more Indigenous art downtown. The Reconciliation Lethbridge is working on that as well. Historic Places is working on that. And so there will be a lot of Blackfoot history and stories being told throughout the community. In this project, because of the way it was formatted around people who actually used the back alleys during that specific time period, it's a little more limited. So we're standing here in another back alley. We crossed the street. We're standing beside the Hotel Dellis, or the Dellis Hotel in Cobanks. And there is an interesting back alley that's going to be named after someone who worked here at the Dellis. Hayose Ohashigawa was a dishwasher at the Dellis Hotel and later a miner and farmer, and he will be getting a back alley in downtown Lethbridge named after him. So too will Paul Smith. Paul Smith, some of you may have heard of him. He was the first police officer from the Lethbridge City Police to die in the line of duty. In June 1913, on his first night as acting sergeant, he attempted to fix one of the street lights and accidentally electrocuted himself and died on one of the street corners here in Lethbridge. But he will have an alley named after him. So too will George Strangling Wolf. George Strangling Wolf was a scout for the RCMP, and he worked here from the Lethbridge Barracks. He was also a First World War veteran, and he'll be getting an alley. Those are two of the people from the police, but we also have people from the fire department that will be getting names. One of them is Thomas Peter Kilkenny. Kilkenny is one of my favorite stories. He became the chief of the fire department in 1909. They brought him in from Manitoba, though he was originally from Ireland. When he came here, he sort of made changes in the fire department, but he would only be chief for 2 years. In January 1911, he helped to fight 2 fires in minus 40-degree temperatures and died of pneumonia 2 months later. Now, when you read his report, an older historian, Dr. Alex Johnson, actually wrote beside his name, considering what was happening in his life, he probably didn't fight too hard to survive, and nothing more. So I wanted to know what was going on in Kilkenny's life. I think I tracked it down to his wife. Somehow she was involved in his not caring if he lived or died. One of the buildings he worked on used to be across the street, the Balmoral Hotel. That was one of the fires he fought in January 1911 that helped contribute to his death. So somebody who certainly would have, through his firefighting, have used the back alleys of Lethbridge, he'll be getting an alley named after him. So too will a man named Jack Smith. Jack Smith worked for the city's electrical department for 24 years, and in those 24 years never took a day off. I am sure when he was working on the electrical system, he worked in the back alleys of Lethbridge as well. Another person who will have a back alley is a man named John Vellance. Vellance was the city's sanitary inspector, or first health inspector. He was responsible for making sure that the dairies followed the proper protocols and that we didn't have typhoid or anything coming from the dairies. He would have checked the restaurants. He would have made sure the sewer systems were working properly. Knowing some health inspectors today, I know some of the weird and wonderful places they have gone to do their work. I have no doubt at all that Vellance spent a lot of time in some of our alleys. Also getting places named after them will be Kwong Sang. He was a restaurateur and entrepreneur. He started the Fashion Cafe in Lethbridge in 1909. But because of the bylaw that was brought in to actually concentrate Chinese businesses, he moved his business a block further west into Chinatown and operated the Kwong Sang and Company for decades in that location. Another person that you will see when the signs go up and the back alleys are named is Charles E. Brower. Charles Brower was an early black entrepreneur in Lethbridge who came again around 1907 and stayed till about 1920. He ran a second-hand store, he had a boarding house, he had a messenger service, all of these businesses in the downtown. He was very active in the community for about 13 years and then moved on to Calgary. Now, it wouldn't be me if we didn't have a few more of the risque stories of Lethbridge, because what is Lethbridge history without the truth of Lethbridge history? Mildred Fleming, who was one of our better-known madams, who had a boarding house of a different nature in Lethbridge, let's just say that. We'll be getting a back alley named after her, and Minnie White, another one of the madams of Lethbridge history. And so all of these people will have a back alley, you'll see a sign that will have it, and on the sign will be a website, as well as a QR code that you can scan, or you can go to the website. It will have the biography of the person whose alley you are in, and information on this back alley project. The hope, the plan is that this will enhance tourism, make people come downtown, try to find all the names, and who knows, maybe eventually we can name every back alley in Lethbridge. Wouldn't that be fun, George?
That would be a lot of fun.
So that's sort of the back alley project. Of course, if you have questions or any comments, please make them on the Facebook page or on the YouTube page. We'd love to know what you think about it and if you have any ideas.
Yeah, we're good.
Just to add on to what Belinda was indicating relative to the overall project, we hope to roll out a number of signs before winter and really get the project underway. And then through the BRZ, we hope to make contact with a number of the landowners whose buildings would be required to fulfill the dispersal of all of the signs. All the signs are made already, and we will make the names available on our website. So I think people should find that quite interesting, and we'll leave it at that.